Hello and welcome to Greatest Games Never Played, a Lanternlight Studios production. I'm Alex Fitzsimmons and joined by my co-host Reno Del Maro. Reno, how you doing?
I'm good, Alex, but I got a question for you.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, what you gonna do when the GGNP maniacs and the 24-inch vocal pipes run wild on you, brother?
Was that Thunder Lips?
The ultimate male.
Welcome to Greatest Games Never Played, where we take a look at famous and important sports moments and analyze what would have happened had they gone a different way. Today, we're doing something a little different today. Reno, what would you call it today?
I would call this a little fun, a little fantasy booking, a little what would happen if you took something that is fictional and put it in a real life situation.
Okay, so we're going outside the box a little bit here, and I'm excited to do it. I think we're gonna have a fun time on this episode here. So without further ado, let's send it away to the one and only special Taro Sugimoto.
In 1976, United Artists released the film Rocky, written by and starring Hollywood newcomer Sylvester Stallone. The film would go on to be the highest grossing picture of the year and receive critical acclaim. It had jump-started the career of Stallone and spawned 7 sequels. The Rocky storyline features tough-as-nails underdog Rocky Balboa rising up from the streets of Philadelphia against the incredible odds to fight the biggest names in the fictional boxing heavyweight division. Over the span of more than 4 decades and 8 films, the franchise introduced many legendary film characters, fighting it out for titles, pride, money, and honor. Meanwhile, the real world of boxing was experiencing a renaissance of its own in the 70s, with some of the greatest fighters of all time battling for the heavyweight title. Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, and George Foreman, to name a few, would put on some of the most important fights in boxing history. But what if the characters were more than words on a page or actors in roles? What if the world of Rocky Balboa existed in the same one we know? Worlds collide as the Italian stallion and the fighters on film cross over into the golden age of heavyweights.
Okay, Reno. So we got Rocky. We got Rocky today. I know you're excited for this one.
Oh, dude, out of my mind. Come on, a little unknown fighter from Philadelphia, the club fighter, the whole universe getting mixed in with real life scenarios. Yeah, dude, I'm excited to do this. This is gonna be fun.
I know we've talked about we're both boxing fans, and I also know we're both Rocky fans. So this will be a good one. I'm looking forward to what we can do here. So, but I guess if we want to explain it to everyone, I guess we're gonna assume somebody in the audience has not seen all 8 Rocky movies. You want to give us a quick rundown here?
Yeah, we could do a quick rundown. So basically, Rocky One came out on November 21st, 1976.
Oh
It was a
boy.
domestic release only. It grossed $117,235,147. At the 49th Academy Awards, it was nominated for 10 awards and won 3, including Best Picture, Best Director for John Avildsen, and Best Film Editing. And it follows the story of Rocky Balboa, who is basically an unknown underdog club fighter, who's given a shot at the most prestigious, title in the world, the heavyweight championship, against the protagonist Apollo Creed. And
Yeah.
basically, Rocky has gives him the fight of his life, and in the end loses in a split decision. But it made careers. It made Sylvester Stallone's career. It made a lot of careers. Carl
Yeah.
Weathers, everybody involved in it. So
And it was a resurgence for Burgess Meredith also playing his trainer. Um,
absolutely.
and it's loosely based on the story of Chuck Wepner getting a shot at the title from against Muhammad Ali,
in
where
75.
yeah, where Wepner stepped on Ali's foot while he punched him, and Ali went down. And it was this underdog fighter. He ended up losing the fight, but he gained a whole lot of renown. And everyone respected him a lot more after that fight, and so this character was kind of loosely based on that. Um,
Absolutely, yeah.
and
Funny
so
thing about that too is Wepner apparently went back to his corner and told his trainer, "Hey, we're gonna be millionaires," thinking Ali was done. And his trainer goes, I don't know, man. He's getting up and he doesn't look too happy." So, and yeah, and from there, that Ali went on and whooped him and actually stopped him in the 14th
yeah,
because fights
so
went 15 rounds back then,
they
not
did,
12
they
like they
did.
are now.
So then we get in 1979, and we get the sequel, Rocky Two,
The
and
sequel, another only domestic only release, actually only did a little over 85 million. So it actually, yeah, did a lot worse. No awards, but in this time around, at the end of the first movie, you saw that Apollo and Rocky did not want to fight again after the beatings that they put on each other. But of course, Rocky 2 has Apollo Creed being upset about the press that he's gotten, the bad press, and people calling him, saying he basically sat down on a bum and he
yeah,
kind of threw the
they
fight a little bit.
they accused him of carrying him for the whole fight.
Yeah, exactly. So what's he do? Of course, his pride is on the line, and he goads Rocky into a second fight, which Rocky was reluctant to do, but then end up changing his mind and doing it, and wasn't really into training and stuff like that until finally his wife, who was having their baby, got sick in the hospital and was in a coma. When she came out of the coma, she said, "Can you do something for me?" And he got close to her and she said, "Win." And
And
that's when
Rocky went
cue the
out there.
music. "What are we waiting for?" From Mickey. And Rocky went on the train. And in their second fight, the Rocky ends up winning the fight on a double knockdown. And Rocky got up from the ropes first.
And beats the
So,
10 count while
yep,
Apollo
beats
did
the
not. So
10 count.
Rocky's the champion, and we get a Rocky 3 in 1982.
Cool. See this one, I really love Rocky 3 a lot more than most people probably do, but it initially got released in 82. It was another domestic only, but it did 124 million, a little over 124 million. So it outgrossed both the first and second movie, not combined, but it beat them. Then they did a re-release a year later in 83, and it almost did another million. It ended up doing like 902,000. Where Rocky now has been the champion for a little while, for a few years, and you come to find out that all the fighters that he's fought after Apollo Creed were kind of like bum fighters, no one worth their weight in gold, no one worth their salt. And
Yeah, where Mick was cherry picking his opponents for him,
yeah,
basically.
Mick was protecting him, giving him bums, giving him, easy fights to keep him on top and to keep him happy and maybe have him retire champion until Clubber Lang comes along. And Clubber Lang is the South Side brawler from Chicago.
Mr. T himself,
Yep, Mr. T's in the movie as Clubber Lang, and
basically playing Mr. T.
yeah, he's Mr. T with like massive power and pity the fool and angry and pain, and all that stuff. So in this one, Clubber Lang basically their first fight, they go to fight. There's a lot of back and forth. Rocky was going to retire. Clubber Lang goads him into not retiring and fighting one last fight. As they're going to fight, there's a little brawl ensues before they go out to the arena, and Mickey gets pushed and he has a heart attack and dies in the back. And he's not out there with Rocky, and Rocky's like, unfocused and basically gets his ass kicked and knocked out in the second round from the bruiser Clubber Lang. So what happens? Rocky's former nemesis and the former champion of the world, Apollo Creed, comes to Rocky with a proposal to train him and to get back the eye of the tiger and to get him back on championship status for a rematch with Clubber Lang. And they form a brotherhood and a bond. And it was rough going at first, but he goes out to LA and trains with Apollo Creed. And essentially, he becomes a different stylistic fighter. He takes Apollo Creed style. He learns footwork. He learns finesse. He gets more
learns
agile.
to learns to fight from the outside.
Absolutely. He learns to use his jab and his distance and not take as much of a beating. Moves, stick and move the head. And that ends up being the difference because in his rematch fight with Clubber Lang, of course, He gets in Clubber Lang's head. He's hitting him with a trip hammer jab. He's moving away from him, staying away from the power, and he's getting in his head at the same time. And Rocky ends up beating him in 3 rounds and winning the title back.
Yep. And then that leads us into Rocky 4. The
Rocky Four, the
Rocky 4, we got the Soviet fighter Ivan Drago coming over looking to challenge a an American legend. So he starts calling out fighters and he ends up getting himself some Apollo Creed coming out of retirement.
absolutely real life imitating art. In this case, the Cold War was still going on. We kind of touched on that in a prior episode.
Yep.
But
So
yeah, Rocky
yeah.
Four. Domestically, it did 127, a little over 127 million, but worldwide, this was a worldwide release. It did a little over 172 million internationally, bringing it up to over 300 million total gross worldwide. So this was big time movie.
So they
Um,
they knew what they were making Rocky 5 right then when they saw those numbers.
oh yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, Rocky Five was already in the books at that point, but yeah, so in this one, the amateur boxer from the Soviet Union, Ivan Drago, who is former military, comes over and is issuing challenges for boxers, and he wants to fight Rocky because he's the world champion. But what you don't realize is Apollo Creed actually steps out of retirement after almost 10 years to fight the Soviet powerhouse, the Siberian Express, as they called him, in an exhibition bout, which goes terribly wrong when you realize the power of Ivan Drago, and he ends up beating Apollo Creed mercilessly at the behest of Rocky because Rocky wants to throw in the towel, but his commitment to his best friend with Apollo telling him don't do it, ends up getting Apollo killed in the ring.
Yeah. So then Rocky comes out and he goes travels to Moscow, trains over there, and defeats Drago in epic fashion, delivering the speech, if I can change and you can change, then we all can change.
Yep, everybody could change. Changes all of Russia. Gorbachev's on board. Everything's going down. I mean, even Gorbachev's birthmark was clapping and
Yep.
cheering for Rocky. You know what I mean? But basically, one of the greatest film montages ever because Rocky took his training in the Siberia. You know what I mean? And was throwing up like rocks in a barrel and and climbing up mountains. It was pretty crazy.
Yep. And then we get
So
Rocky 5 in 1990.
yeah,
We
Rocky.
have
Phew, yeah, kind of a bomb here.
yeah. So Rocky 5, we have a retired Rocky here, and he is sought out by Tommy Gunn, an up and comer from where was he from Oklahoma or something like that.
Oklahoma moved to Philly.
Yep, and he wants Rocky to train him, and Rocky does train him. He promotes him up. He's got him on an undefeated streak when he's poached by promoter Duke Washington to get the title shot. And Tommy Gunn goes and gets a title shot, but realizes then that he'll never escape from the shadow of Rocky. Everyone still
Rocky's
compares him to Rocky, the
Clone
Rocky,
Ranger.
the Clone Ranger. So
Yeah,
he then goes out and challenges Rocky to a street fight and loses to Rocky on camera, surrounded by people cheering on Rocky. It is
one of
it's a weak entry in the series, if we're honest.
yeah, you know what too? One of my, favorite parts of that film, though, has gotta be in the bar when he's challenging Rocky and Tommy Gunn ends up taking a shot at Paulie, and Rocky always goes, "Hey, you knocked him down. Why don't you try knocking me down?" And then George Washington Duke is like, "Tommy Gunn only fights in the ring, only fights in the ring." And Rocky goes, "My ring's outside." Classic, classic. Yep, did not so well at the theaters. Maybe Rocky was losing its luster a little bit there. Only did a little over 40 million domestically, and with the international at 79 million. Ends up only it did 119, which sounds great, but compared to the other films, it's pretty much a bomb.
Yeah,
Uh,
so they took 16 years off before making the next one. Then
yes, so that's Rocky Balboa. That ended up doing 70 million domestically and another 85 million internationally, and ended up grossing 150, a little over 155 million. But
in that one, we get long retired Rocky coming out of retirement to fight a 4 round exhibition against the undefeated heavyweight champion Mason the Line Dixon, who feels like he's been fighting a bunch of nobodies in the heavyweight era during his reign, and feels largely untested. So he's looking for just take a little bit of the polish off of Rocky in an exhibition match.
Well, I
Um,
think even in the film, they talk about his last defense, his last title defense. He beat the guy so quickly that people start throwing trash and ice from their cups in the ring, and at how
mhm,
bored they were with him. And then I guess on there, was it ESPN or maybe the equivalency of ESPN? It was probably ESPN because I think they probably had rights to do that. But there was a kind of fantasy booking thing, kind of like what we do, you know what I mean? But they did a fantasy booking matchup, like what would happen if Rocky Balboa in his prime fought Mason the Lion Dixon in his prime, and it ended up coming out that they had Balboa winning it.
mhm.
And I think that got the machinations, going with fight promoters and the fact that Rocky still had a little something in the basement, and yeah, so he gets a shot. An old man gets a shot at the young champion.
And he loses a split decision where he shows a bunch of grit and heart, and he says the beast is gone, so he no longer has to fight after this one.
That's right. And probably one of the single greatest speeches to this day in a movie, like an inspirational speech. I mean, I'm not going to say the whole thing, but the whole speech to his son, Robert Jr., when he basically says to him, like, that's not you, that's how winning is done. You know what I mean? You get up, you know what I mean? Oh, it's great. So that came out of that at least.
Yeah. So then we get 9 years later, 2015, we get Creed, which is the story of Apollo Creed's son, Adonis Creed. I think as he moves from LA to Philly to train under Rocky, and that's how it works out. Creed wins one fight before his birthright is revealed, and which point kind of makes him a hot commodity as people want to pick off the big name there. And the champ Ricky Conlon, who just lost his opponent by sucker punching him at the weigh-in, right, or press conference,
Yeah.
decides he's going to pull up Creed for his last fight
Before he goes to jail.
before he goes to jail to end his career. And so Conlon wins by split decision, but he does tell Creed at the time, he's like, "You're the future of this division."
Yeah, and the movie did 109 million domestically and another 64 million internationally. It grossed 173 million and starred Michael B. Jordan. And
Hmm.
Michael B. Jordan had been in The Wire, and he was also on Friday Night Lights, the television show. And he was, a big up and coming rising actor. And he plays Adonis Johnson Creed. He's the illegitimate son of
Of Apollo
Apollo
Creed.
Creed, of him cheating on his wife. But he's an interesting character because he's sort of a kid that comes from a rich background, living with his mom. They have money, but he also kind of was like a street kid too. So he's got an interesting dynamic to him, and he's got the fire, and I think that's what leads him to Rocky. And the other thing too, Rocky in this went through his own battle with cancer,
Hmm.
and with the young man helping him out and being there, I think it gave him the will to survive it.
Yeah, as Rocky's now has lost his wife and Paulie, and he has really no one in his life anymore. So this young kid coming in here is kind of it reinvigorates Rocky too.
Yeah, absolutely. And his son had, kind of losing his way with his son because his
Yeah,
son was kind of
estranged, I
in
would say.
shadow. Yeah, absolutely.
So then we get 3 years later, Creed 2. We get Creed as the champion, or rather, we have Creed 6 fights since the last movie, going and fighting for the title, winning the championship. And then we get the son of Ivan Drago coming out of the dark, challenging Creed. He wants to take on the son of the man his father killed,
Yeah. And essentially get back at the man, his manager, his trainer who beat him
Rocky.
in
Yep.
back when Apollo, died and Rocky beat him back in 85. So it's like a revenge plot here. The movie did pretty well domestically, 16 million. Did almost another 100 million internationally. So it ended up doing 214 million worldwide. And in this, Victor Drago and Adonis Creed fight, and Victor Drago's beaten up pretty good and looks like he's going to win the fight, but he hits him while he's down and gets disqualified. So now in the rematch, in the second fight, it comes down to Adonis Creed trying to build himself up to be able to withstand the type of beating he's going to take in a rematch in a second fight with Victor Drago
So
while
cue the
still.
montage.
Yep, you got it. And he goes through hell, and he's able to take the fight to him, and in the end, he wins on a battle of attrition,
Hmm.
essentially.
Yep.
But crazy thing, all 8 films, of the Rocky franchise, the total box office gross of the entire franchise is 1.2 billion, almost 1.3 billion. And that's
Hmm.
just in the movies alone, domestic, like, release to the theaters. That's not, replays, that's not, toys or anything like that, any kind of, like, proceeds or anything afterwards, anything that goes with it. So it's pretty crazy how much money these movies have made.
Yeah.
So,
So that brings us, I guess, to what we want to do. We want to insert this world, this Rocky world, on top of and into the heavyweight divisions of their eras. So that prompts us to talk a little bit about what was going on in the late 60s and 70s in the heavyweight division. Because this is pretty much the golden era of the heavyweight division. We're talking about Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier. We're talking about Ken Norton, George Foreman. We're talking about young Larry Holmes. We're talking about a lot of these just legends of the sport right here that are
oh,
all kicking around right at this era with the first Rocky and the first 3 Rockies really kind of came out.
I mean, between like the mid '60s to early '80s, yeah, you got Joe Frazier, Muhammad Ali, like you said, Holmes, George Foreman, Ken Norton, Floyd Patterson, Jerry Quarry, Leon Spinks, Ernie Shavers. The list goes on. I mean, these guys are the best of the best, and all very large men too. You know what I mean? Like none of these guys were small.
No.
I mean, even Jerry Cooney, who had a good career up into some of his bigger losses to like Foreman and
Yeah, Jerry
Spinks.
Cooney's 6'6".
Yeah, 6'6". He's a monster. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, when you incorporate, now we're incorporating these guys from Rocky into that. You're like, whoa, like this is crazy.
All right, so let's get into this right here. So let's tell the story of Rocky and tell the story of the fighters this era by combining them together. Let's just do it. So what do you think happened? Let's approach this in an era kind of way. Let's go Let's go early 70s to mid 80s. Let's call it Rocky 1 through 3 era.
Okay.
Well, what do you think is going to happen? What are these? What is the? I mean, obviously, we're talking about who we're inserting here. We got Rocky, we got Apollo Creed, we got Clubber Lang, and we're pitting them against the likes of these legends.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy because, first of all, Rocky gets his shot at the title when he's 30 years old.
He's
Um,
what was his record? It was 44-20 or something like that.
Yeah, it's crazy. He lost a lot of club fights, like a lot of bad fights. I mean, he's a club fighter. You see in the first movie, he beats Spider Rico, who's another club fighter in the second round. But he's basically given this unlikely shot that would never happen in real life. I vehemently believe that no world champion would ever really do this. And even with the Chuck Wepner thing, like I said, we were talking a little bit before. Chuck Wepner
Was a top 10 ranked
was a
heavyweight.
top 10 ranked heavyweight. 5 years before he fought Muhammad Ali in 75, right? And he lost to him, but he went almost the full distance with him. But 5 years prior to that, he fought Sonny Liston, who was the world champion that Ali took the belt from. He fought George Foreman. I mean, he lost both of those fights. He was stopped in both those fights. But this guy fought names. Like Rocky is like literally at the blue horizon. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
which is like, I don't need, it doesn't even
that's a little inside Philly right there for you. Right? Talking about
right
the Blue
there.
Horizon.
He's at the blue horizon. I mean, he's basically fighting in nightclubs. Um, so to get the shot at the title, because essentially Apollo's opponent was Mac Lee Green, injured his hand, so Apollo needed that. Yeah, I don't see Ali giving Rocky Balboa a shot at the title. It's just not going to happen. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So, but Rocky,
So you got Rocky, which is a middling club fighter his whole career here.
he's a middling club fighter. I mean, he never makes it to the top because here's the thing: even if he gets a shot at a top 10 or top 15 guy, I mean, he took beatings in the ring. Beatings. You can't fight like that in real life. You cannot go into a boxing ring and get your head just knocked off like that. I don't care how tough you are. You can't cut your eye open with a razor blade and cut your eyelid off and expect that fight's not going to be stopped. First of all, Apollo Creed knocked him down, I don't know, what seemed like 100 times in that first fight. So I mean, he knocked him down at least 2 or 3 times in multiple rounds, and that the fights would be stopped due to a technical knockout. Like, you can't, most referees with any kind of heart or mindset or skill set are not gonna let this guy take a bludgeoning like this and essentially get him killed in the ring.
Okay. So
Um,
so so you got him just kind of middling around. He never cracks top 10. He's probably not
yeah.
ever ranked anywhere. So I guess the question I got to hit you with then, what happens with Apollo Creed?
See, that I have is something different. See, I think Apollo Creed is the real deal. You look at Rocky. Rocky was they bill him at 5'11", 202 pounds, right? Sylvester Stallone's lucky if he's 5'8". You know what I mean? Like 5'9", 5'8". So he's really smaller. He's got this huge win-loss record, but Apollo, it's different. Apollo comes in the scene around the late 60s to the mid 70s, right? He's 6'2". He's 225. He's just shredded to pieces. He's got speed. He's got finesse. He's got agility. He's got footwork. This guy,
In fairness to Rocky, Rocky was shredded too.
well, he got shredded in 3 and 4. He was not in the first 2 movies. He was
Yeah. Okay.
lean. He wasn't in the worst shape. But if you look at Rocky between Rocky 1 and 2 and then 3, you're like, holy shit balls. Like, dude, roids, PEDs, he should have been on the episode. If Rocky were real, it would have been Rocky and Lance Armstrong. Okay. Because Jesus, the guy had muscles on top of muscles hanging on his rib. Like, you don't see like lat rib muscles like that on a
All right.
human being.
I'm gonna pull you back from talking about the muscles on
All right, the point
Sylvester
is
Stallone's chest.
that's the difference, though. I don't think Rocky ever gets to Rocky 3 or Rocky 4 Rocky. Because like I said, a club fighter, 81 fights, 57 wins, 23 losses. I mean, he had power. He knocked 51 guys out in his 57 wins, but he took 23 losses and he took beatings. I mean, the man got beat so bad, got his eye shut so bad that he had to switch stances to save his eye in the second
Mhm.
fight. But Apollo Creed, I mean, you're talking about the King of Sting, the Count of Monte Fisto, the Master of Disaster. I mean, he was in his prime, and the I see Apollo Creed like this. If Apollo Creed is in the real world, you're looking at a guy who's only an inch shorter than Ali, but probably and maybe 10 pound, giving up 10 pounds to him, but he's rock solid. He's probably faster than Ali. And I think I would say this, in my opinion, Apollo Creed was in Ali's circle. He was a young up and coming fighter who trained with Ali, who had the same inner circle, who had the same friends, who was like a hungry pup coming up, like learning from his idol. Because essentially, if you look at Apollo Creed, he's Muhammad Ali, the way that Stallone wrote him. I
He's a
mean,
fictionalized version of
he's
Muhammad Ali. Yeah, that's
absolutely.
indisputable. Yeah.
Yeah, he's the fictionalized Muhammad Ali. And in this case, I mean, Apollo Creed is insane. I mean, he had 50 total fights. By the time he died, he had 48 wins and 2 losses. His 2 losses being the Rocky and then the Drago when he died. But he had 48 wins and 48 of his and 47 of those 48 wins he won by knockout. The only fight that he won not knocking out a guy was against Rocky in a split decision. I mean, he was trained by one of the best trainers in the world, Tony Duke Evers. I mean, I think this guy has the kind of footwork, the size speed combination, and the boxing skills and the attitude like Ali to possibly contend and take the title from his idol. It's master versus apprentice, teacher versus student. And I've got Apollo Creed taking Ali down in the early the mid 70s to win the title. And
Wow.
Ali, yep. And the only way Ali gets the title back is when Rocky comes along and beats Apollo Creed. But in this scenario, there's no Rocky because Rocky's a club fighter that would never been given a shot. So I think I have him going a little longer. I have his career longevity a little longer. I say Apollo Creed fights another 2 years, gets closer to, maybe 54 wins, retires undefeated champion of the world, and might possibly knock Muhammad Ali down a peg a little bit.
Wow, you got him potentially being the greatest of all time?
The greatest of all time. He's
Wow, okay.
he's Ali without the losses.
Huh. Okay, okay.
Yeah,
I
because I
wasn't
think
expecting
he's
that. Wasn't expecting that. So, all right. So I'm gonna, I want to retort, but I want to let you finish first. What happens with Clubber Lang?
Clubber Lang's interesting because when I think of Clubber Lang, you think of the power of Tyson, right? But I would question his heart and his conditioning. Because even Mike Tyson went the distance. Mike Tyson won some decisions. Sure, he knocked a lot of motherfuckers out for sure. But even if he went the distance, he went 12 rounds with a lot of fighters. He beat Razor Ruddock in the ninth round, I believe, after knocking him down in the eighth round. So, and that was a fight that people thought, oh, Tyson might lose because of he's never been past the fifth round. Clubber Lang, though, this guy's knocking fools out, right? But he's not a huge guy. I mean, he's muscular, he's ripped, he's shredded, but he's 5'11", 225, Southside slugger from Chicago. Um, he's got 29 fights, so he doesn't even have a ton of fights under his belt, and he won 28 of his 29 fights by knockout. So he's a killer. But I think that his I think he's gonna lack reach. I think he's gonna lack a skill set. I think he's going to lack like a boxing skill set, a real boxing skill set to move. I think he's going to lack conditioning. And I think he's going to run into like Ali. He's going to run into Larry Holmes. He's going to run into some guys who just have reach, who are better boxers, who are smarter fighters, better strategists. And I think they're going to keep him at a distance. Now, by this time, Ali would have been done. I think Ali's last fight was in 81. But still, Larry Holmes was coming up in the ranks. Larry Holmes was like 6'5", you know what I mean? And had probably an 82-inch reach or so. I mean, he had a long jab. I just don't see Clubber Lang. Maybe he knocks out some club fighters, but I think as soon as he gets in with any one of like a Michael Spinks at the time before he got knocked out from Tyson, even like a Trevor Burbick or
Really, you think Clubber Lang wouldn't have held his own with Spinks or Burbick? Well, I mean, Spinks, I think is better than people give him credit for. I
Michael
think
Spinks was much
people
better.
remember the last fight, the knockout to Tyson, and they forget a career that he was really one of the greats.
He was absolutely amazing, and had he not lost to Tyson, he would have been in upper echelon. People were considering him like, "Whoa, this guy might take the mantle," and he just ran into a destroyer.
Yeah,
And, but,
and at the
yeah,
end of the career too. So it makes you wonder if Spinks wouldn't have done better, fared a lot better at a different time in his career.
yeah,
He
absolutely, I
kind
agree.
of caught the up and coming Mike Tyson as he was coming down. But I digress. You're telling your story.
Yeah, no, and I just think that like Michael Spinks, even Leon Spinks, I think other fighters that were still around fighting, like a Tim Witherspoon, who was a smart fighter, who was a big fighter but smart, kept that jab, kept people at a distance, didn't walk in the like, wouldn't get into a slugfest, wouldn't get into a brawl. I just think that he would eventually, inevitably, come across smarter fighters who are more rangy, who have more power, and who have better conditioning, and he would have just gotten the same treatment because I mean, essentially, he got knocked out. He got beat mentally, and then he got beat physically, and he just gassed. I mean, a guy could throw all those punches, but if he's hitting the arms, that's all he's doing is hitting the arms. You know what I mean? He's going to tire himself out, and he's going to get knocked the fuck out. And
Okay.
I don't think Clubber Lang would have lasted. I don't think his style would have lasted long. He would have knocked guys out, but he wouldn't have had the attrition. Um, and I mean, you could kind of see that with like Deontay Wilder today. Like, I like Deontay Wilder, and he's got God power. Like, that dude's probably even stronger than Clubber Lang. But a lot of people don't consider him a very good boxer. And then when you
He's
see
awkward,
him,
that's for sure.
what's that?
He's awkward for sure.
Yeah, he's got an awkward stance. He doesn't have a great jab. He's not a counter puncher. I mean, really, he's a guy that does his best not to take too much damage and looks for his one shot.
Mm,
And I think essentially Clubber Lang is throwing heavy shots like that with both arms, and he's just not going to last.
and
And
he's also like 8, 9 inches shorter.
yeah, I mean Deontay Wilder's what 6'7". I mean, he's a monster. Um, Yeah, I agree 100%. He's a shorter fighter, and he's got a ton of muscle. And when you're stacked and short like that, and you're like a stout muscular like that, man, the heart's got to pump hard to oxygenate those muscles. You know what I mean? And you could just see in that second fight with Rocky, he just got gassed. And I think that had he fought Apollo Creed in his prime, Apollo Creed was going to knock him out too. You know what I mean? Because it was essentially the same style fighter. You know what I mean? And better. You know, and bigger. So no, I don't think Clubber Lang lasts. I don't even know
Okay.
if he gets a title shot. I don't think he'll make it far enough.
Okay. Okay. I like it. I like it. So we ran through your guys. Now it's my turn, Reno. I'm
Hmm.
going to tell you how what actually happened. So 1970, we got Apollo Creed. He's 2 years into his career. I think he's cracking the top 10. I think he's scraping into the top 10 there. He's probably looking like probably an 18-0 at that point right there. I mean, we know how he ends up 48 and 2. But I think 1970, he's crawling his way up the standings here. So I got him in 71 then. Moving up a little bit more. Maybe he knocks out some of the guys around there. Maybe a Joe Bugner or something like that. 72, he keeps climbing up. He's climbing the rankings up. Maybe knocks off another top 10. Let's go looking at the standings. Let's go Jose Roman knocks him out. And then the next year, I think he's taking on Jerry Quarry and Jimmy Ellis, Philly fighter Jimmy Ellis there.
Yep.
Um, and I think he's bumping himself up a little higher. I think we're looking top 5 here. Now he's looking ahead of him. He's got the Ken Norton, the Frazier, the Ali's, the Foremans. Like he's got these guys in front of him now. So now it gets real. Now, how good is Creed? How good is this guy really? So I think he's got a fight against Ken Norton, and I think in '74, I think he's defeating Ken Norton and Ron Lyle to finish the year 39-0, putting him up into third. So he is now Ken Norton and Muhammad Ali's ahead as a champ. So 75, we're looking at he's beating I got him beating Joe Frazier. I think he would beat Joe Frazier in 75 here. So Creed doesn't get a lot of credit for defeating Frazier, as he's viewed as washed up at the time, though. So even though it's a big win on his record in 1975, Frazier's on his way out at that point right there. So we're setting ourselves up right here in 1976. Muhammad Ali is doing what he does. He's beating J.P. Koopman, Jimmy Young, Robert Dunn, Ken Norton, defending his title. Apollo Creed continues to work his way up, and now he gets his fight with George Foreman. And he wins against George Foreman, I think. I think Apollo Creed can defeat George Foreman. I'm with you there. I've got Apollo Creed setting up right here in 1977. You get your title match, your Ali versus Apollo Creed. But you know what happens? Apollo Creed is a imitation of the greatest. He's not Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali fends him off, defeats Apollo Creed by decision. Yeah, it's definitely a decision win. Apollo Creed takes his first L.
Majority,
Uh,
split, unanimous. What do you got?
I got it unanimous.
Unanimous
I got
decision.
I got
Wow.
Apollo Creed losing to Muhammad Ali by unanimous decision. Muhammad Ali is the statue that Apollo Creed was carved out of. He's not going to beat the greatest of all time. He's just not. That's not who he is. That's not who he is. He's too small. He's got other holes in his game. Apollo Creed's he's got a good jab cross combo thing going. He's okay at ducking and weaving, but man, he took some punishment to Rocky Balboa. Like Rocky Balboa, for all this, I'm gonna give him a lot of credit. I think Rocky Balboa is better than you think he is. But if they were talking the greatest of all time, Muhammad Ali didn't get hit like that. No one hit Muhammad Ali like the way that Rocky Balboa, this club fighter, was able to do damage to Apollo Creed. And then Apollo Creed took a ton of damage when he fought Ivan Drago also. But I know he was well past his prime at that point. But I mean, that's a
Well, you're
lot of damage for a guy to be taken who's supposed to be the best of all time.
I agree with that, but you even think Ali in 77 slowing down, that jab's a little slower. He's a little heavier on his feet. He's taking on the younger Creed at this point, a
I
hungry.
mean, for the record, this is not younger Creed. This is right around when
Oh, they're probably around the same age, right? I
yeah,
guess
they're
at this
around the
point.
same age. So they're both
Oh,
near
they
to
were
the end.
34. Yeah, they were both
Yeah,
like
it's
30,
1977. I got a meeting here.
so
So,
be 35, two 35-year-olds at that point, probably.
mhm.
And Yeah, I mean, I give this to you. I think though that Rocky gave him the beating because he didn't train for him. It was almost like Mike Tyson and Buster Douglas.
So he
Like
made the same mistake twice?
the first time, I think the second time, I just think that maybe there was one weakness, and pride's a weakness. Pride is a huge weakness. I
And
agree the
and also I
second
would say it's
time.
the styles make fights. Some guys just have that kryptonite. Their style is kryptonite for somebody else.
I agree. Styles do make fights, and I mean, that's one of the biggest proponents of any major fight you see, especially in MMA now. Like guys avoid guys because they know that certain styles definitely will harm them. And
And just like Ali had Frazier, who was the similar kind of style to Rocky, the bobbing and weaving, getting in, doing lots of body work. Really, Rocky's fighting style is probably modeled after Joe Frazier.
absolutely, yeah, high
Um,
elbows, high elbow block. You know what I mean? Blocks to the ribs. You know,
and Frazier gave Ali a lot of trouble, so you can see why Rocky Balboa, the Joe Frazier knockoff, would give Apollo Creed, the Muhammad Ali knockoff, trouble. Just stylistically, of course, he should give him trouble.
yeah. I mean, yeah. That's pretty much because he was modeled after him. So now you're thinking if you have two guys that have the same footwork, the same skill set, kind of modeled after one another, it'd be like mirror images fighting each other. And in the end, you just pick the original over
Yeah. I
the
mean, I think it was more than I think for me, it was also about the damage I saw that Apollo Creed took in his fights. That I knew he was not as defensively sound as Muhammad Ali was. Muhammad Ali was the best at getting out of trouble. He was always getting out of trouble. He'd get
very
himself
true.
in there, and he was able to he was too fast. He slipped out of there. He'd back away. He didn't even like duck and weave like everyone else. He would just back up faster than you. That's all. You couldn't
Here's the
catch him.
other thing too. He had tremendous length. I mean, he had a huge
That
reach. He had
jab
a
was crazy.
big wingspan. So not only is he hitting with the jab, but you're thinking that he's probably controlling Rocky with his hands too. Say Rocky fought Muhammad Ali. Rocky's not going to be able to do that swarming style that maybe a Joe Frazier did because Joe Frazier was bigger, a little bit bigger. And Joe Frazier was such a bruiser that like he would take punches that go in. Rocky's going to do the same thing, but I think that Ali probably, yeah, just keeps him at the outside and probably knocks him out just because of his size. Just I think he would have
Yeah.
put a beating on. But I think
So
Apollo Creed's interesting though because of
I
his
think Apollo Creed is very interesting. I
the
think if it
body
wasn't for
type.
Muhammad Ali, I think Apollo Creed could have been the champ. And I think when Apollo Creed loses to Muhammad Ali, that's it. Yeah, he retires there. He's just like he did, just like a lot of Rocky's fighters do. They retire after their first loss. I think that Apollo Creed joins the ranks of that. I think it's near the end of his career anyway. It's around that time. He took a shot. Muhammad Ali was too much. What's the point of hanging around beating the other guys that he knows he can beat? He knows he can beat the Ken Nortons, the Foremans now.
The Aaron
Yeah,
Shavers, the Jimmy
yeah.
Youngs.
He knows he can beat these guys, but he knows he can't beat Ali. So let's just get out of here, take your money and go. But this is where I have things going a little different than you too. 75, 1975, going back in time a couple years here. Rocky Balboa still middling, still fighting his little tiny fights. He's probably like 47-20. I got him right here. And then what happens is you're right, the heavyweight champion of the world is not going to give him a shot. But you know who will? Someone, maybe a Philly fighter who guy goes down on whose opponent goes out on short notice and needs to bring a guy in. A guy who, he's probably just going to get fed to the machine here. Rocky Balboa is going to get that fight. There's a couple in the top 10 Philly fighters here. We got Jimmy Young. We got Joe Frazier. I got Jimmy Young on short notice. I got Rocky stepping into his big fight. 76 here. He's stepping up. He's fighting Jimmy Young, who was number 4 the previous year. And I got Rocky in his big moment, as Rocky always shows up in his big moments, fighting him to a draw and cracking the top 10 in the following year, 1976.
Wow.
So I got Rocky cracking top 10 in 76. I think you downplayed what Rocky's skills are. I think Rocky he's a brawler. He's a southpaw. He's got maybe the hardest, the craziest good chin we've ever seen in boxing history. This guy's chin is stupid.
But they
Uh,
don't get better as you get older. You've seen that with so many
no, no, no,
fighters. You've
no,
seen that,
and I agree. But he's also got that great stamina. The guy's going all the rounds all the time. Does great body work, and you can't doubt the man's heart, the man's will. He's going to show up.
That's
So
why
I
it's a
got
movie.
so I got 77 then. Balboa defeats Jimmy Young in the rematch. And I got him winning 2 more fights against lower ranked fighters, jumping himself all the way up to the number 9 spot in the rankings, in the Ring Magazine rankings in 1977, which is going to then set up for Rocky Balboa to get a bigger shot, and he's going to run himself into Ernie Shavers, and I got him losing to Ernie Shavers in a Fight of the Year candidate. Ernie Shavers had real power.
Oh yeah,
Ernie
stupid
Shavers
power.
had stupid. When people talk about Mike Tyson might just be a knockoff of Ernie Shavers as far as power goes. But Mike Tyson had other skills. Ernie Shavers had stupid power. But there's one thing you know about Rocky: he's going to come back with a rematch, and he's going to get another Fight of the Year candidate, and he's going to win that rematch.
Wow.
I got Rocky beating Ernie Shavers in the rematch in 1978, and then you know that's not the end of it. So after he's got to fight Ernie Shavers again. And in 78, 79, he wins the rubber match with Ernie Shavers, earns himself a shot at Larry Holmes, who is not the champion at the time because Muhammad Ali is retiring right around that time. So Larry Holmes is the top ranked heavyweight, no unified title though. And I got Rocky Balboa. Well, I got him here, earning a shot, and he wins that fight to bring his record to 55-21-1.
And
I
wins.
got him getting inside on Larry Holmes because Larry Holmes had the jab. What else did Larry Holmes have? Larry Holmes had no heart. He had no heart. He had nothing to really talk about except for one of the best jabs in
He
boxing
had a
history.
jab. He was a good counter puncher. I mean, you're remembering Larry Holmes, though, that got knocked out to Tyson. Larry
Yeah,
Holmes, you know what I
I
mean?
got
Like
I'm
Tico to
in the
Tyson.
1980 times. We had the little mustache going. I remember Larry Holmes.
Larry
I
Holmes
mean,
was, Larry
he
Holmes,
had he was
he beat an
awkward.
old Ali. Sure, he beat an old Ali.
And that's what put him at the top of the rankings there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying Larry Holmes. He had a long career though, and he stuck around. He did have a good
He did.
jab. He
He,
wasn't
he had
super
one of the best.
powerful.
He had one of the best jabs, but
Yeah,
he also had like no heart. That guy had no guts. Of course, that's me not boxing. He's stepping into the ring. Of course, he has heart and guts, but he doesn't have not the kind that Rocky Balboa has. He's going to step inside, bring the fight right inside. I mean, this guy is his stylistically, he's the kryptonite to the outside jabber of Larry Holmes, who didn't really do much besides jab.
yeah, but you know what? I think Larry Holmes would have kept his distance. You know what I mean? Larry Holmes. I mean, and then you could argue, well, Larry Holmes didn't keep his distance. Tyson got in on, but Tyson's just in a whole nother animal. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Rocky Balboa is lucky that he retired before Tyson came around because he would have got destroyed.
I'm not done here yet. I'm
Well,
not
anyway,
done
I
here yet.
I don't know if he beats Larry Holmes,
So,
but
so,
that's
so, so, so,
interesting.
so, to be clear, he gets the rematch. Larry Holmes wins the rematch.
Okay.
Larry
Now,
Holmes
was
ring,
the first fight for the title like the vacant belt?
It was not for the vacant belt. Larry Holmes is going to get the vacant belt though after that win. He's going to beat up who do I got him here? I got him defeating Cooney and unifying the title after the Rocky win right there.
Okay.
So he's going to go on to that. Rocky then is going to I got him then beating Michael Dokes. And after that defending his title. Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess I got Dokes coming in.
Dokes.
Michael
Okay.
Dokes.
Yeah, Michael Dokes, good fighter.
Yeah, Michael
Bone
Dokes coming
Crusher
in.
Smith in there.
Yeah, so I got Michael Dokes coming in here. He's got a belt. He doesn't have the title. Larry Holmes reigns. Michael Dokes is around there. Larry Holmes holds on to the title there for a while there. But I got Rocky hanging around there by beating some other guys right here. I got him Michael Dokes. I got him beaten. I got him beating Greg Page, Jerry Coetzee. And then I got him losing his last fight here to Larry Holmes, trying to get the title shot again and ending his career in 84.
So basically, he beats Ernie Shavers 2 out of 3.
Mm-hmm. And I got
He
him winning 1 out of 3 against Larry Holmes.
Larry Holmes, and he beat Jimmy Young in a split. He split with
Yeah,
Jimmy Young.
yep, a draw and a win.
That's now the Ernie Shavers trilogy is enough
I,
to make a name for him. Period. I mean,
and
think
that's kind
about
of
it.
what I thought it was. I thought he comes in here, the Jimmy thing gets him in the Jimmy Young gets him in the door. But like I think the trilogy for Fight of the Year candidates keeps Rocky interesting, keeps him a draw that people want to see this guy because the guy's an action fighter.
Still
I mean,
keeps you top 15 for sure.
the heavyweight division wants action fighters, especially this time, especially around the time after Ali retires. It is Larry Holmes sitting at the top with not a whole lot going on underneath him. And that kind of downplays guys like Mike Weaver and Leon Spinks, but they weren't on the level of Larry Holmes. And like there wasn't a whole lot of really great competition there.
That's not bad. That's impressive because I personally don't ever see him getting a shot to get
I think
that notoriety.
needs the shot first. You're right, because if he doesn't get the shot, he doesn't even get it. I think he's a guy who can hang around with and kind of fight up to his competition and fight down to his competition.
I'll tell you this, your scenario where you give the type of shot he gets in your scenario is more realistic. He doesn't
Yes.
get a shot at Ali.
No,
He gets a
and like,
shot.
lucky there's Philly fighters all around here, so he's in the room. He's right down the street when they need a
Yep.
guy.
Yeah, and that could boast yeah, you're right. If he could get in with like a Jimmy Young or a Joe Frazier, if he could somehow get a fight with one of those guys and make an impact, and even like I said, splitting with Jimmy Young, you're right. That could get him. That could at least elongate his career and give him some notoriety in his career. He could have at least been someone of presence in the boxing scene. I mean, I
And
completely don't see him getting any shots, but again, that's interesting because you're
yeah,
right.
I think his heart's too big. I think if he's in a ring, he's always got a chance. He's a guy who always has a chance. But you're right, get him in the ring is where you got to figure out how that works out. And I think it's
And when
just his Philly connection, his of being available when a guy goes down, gets him in the ring.
I can't disagree with you on that. The man was the all heart and brawn. I mean, he is everything that you think of when you think of the essential, uh, quintessential, underdog that will never give up, will never say die. You know what I mean? That's him.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's an interesting scenario. The Ernie Shavers trilogy, that's very reminiscent of like Mickey Ward and Arturo
Mhm.
Gatti. You
I
know,
kinda thought it was the perfect matchup because he's a 'cause
absolutely.
if anyone's built to take Ernie Shaver's power, it's Rocky. Rocky's
Yeah.
gonna is gonna eat those punches all day long, and, he'll be in the hospital for months afterwards, but
In the
he's not.
movies, yes. In real life, he's getting slept. He's going down the first round.
So I do wanna touch on Clubber Lang. I kind of agree with you. Clubber Lang's a powerful fighter. I think he can probably fight his way up the top 10, but Larry Holmes would embarrass him. Larry Holmes, I
Yeah.
mean I mean, like, this guy, he's, from I think a little he's reminiscent of Tyson in the way that, he has all this power, the aggressive, brutal style, but where he's different than Tyson is he did not have good technique. His combos were really weak, and he had no stamina, which you could say about Tyson too. But like this guy faded as soon as he got past the third round.
Yeah. He never got past like, really, if you look at his fights, I mean, just based on the 2 fights you saw with Rocky and
Yeah,
some of, like, the footage in the movie,
and
this
that's
guy
why
wasn't going past 2 rounds with anyone.
I think
He
stylistically he could have been interesting against Holmes because he would have done the same thing I said Rocky did. He would have tried to work his way inside. And that's or what Tyson did. These guys who's just going to be aggressive, they're going to come forward and go get him, but with no endurance, he's not going to hang around with Holmes. Holmes will, he's going to beat him in fifth or sixth round.
Yeah, and I don't think he has the close quarter. That's the thing. Rocky beat Clubber Lang with close quarter punching. You know what I mean? He beat him with the trip hammer jab, though. You know what I mean? He stuck
Well,
that jab out there,
yeah, he
and then
beat
when
him
he
by
got him
kind
in
of
the
switching up.
ropes, he beat him to the body and the ropes inside and got out of his way. Where Tyson was like the master of close quarter fighting. Like Tyson would, and he was so much quicker, and he didn't, and his punches were direct. Like Tyson
Well,
hits you with absolute direct power.
I
You
tell
know
you
what I
what I
mean?
want to do then. You know what I want to do then? I want to move on to the next era. Let's get into Tyson. Let's move into the Rocky 4, Rocky 5, mid 80s, early 90s. That's the Tyson era, right? That's Michael Spinks, Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield. This is Lennox Lewis towards the end of it. I mean, and then we're gonna drop in Ivan Drago and Tommy Gunn.
Mhm.
And I mean, if you want to drop Rocky in there, if you're feeling froggy, you can drop Rocky in there if you want. But I want to hear what you got. Well, what happens when you drop Ivan Drago, Tommy Gunn, and potentially Rocky into this era?
Well, I'm not gonna drop Rocky because I think at this point, Rocky think about it, he fought in '76 at 30, so by
Well,
85,
85 is when he fought.
yeah,
That's when he's fighting.
yeah, so he's
Ivan Dra-
39 in
when he's fighting
85.
Drago.
Yep. I think that the beating he took to Drago ends his career. I think
So, so, so does that happen in this world?
well, in this world, in my world, since he never really becomes a club fighter, Ivan Drago comes out of nowhere in '85 and starts knocking dudes out, right? And essentially, I mean, dude, with his size link combo, fact too that Dolph Lundgren, who played Ivan Drago, was a kickboxer in real life as well. But I mean, he was like 240, 6'5",
He's 6'5",
be
261.
261 a muscle. Yeah, that's right, 261. So he has 32 fights, right? 31 and one. His only loss to Rocky. I mean, he fought Apollo as an amateur, so it didn't count. But
Yeah, because
Um,
the story of Ivan Drago actually is it's interesting too. Because the story of him is that, he fights that exhibition against Apollo, it doesn't count. He then loses the fight to Rocky, and then goes back to the Soviet Union in disgrace and does not return to professional boxing until '91 to then win to knock off 31 fought wins in a row.
31
Never
wins in a row,
never get the title.
all by knocking. No, he apparently won the WBA heavyweight championship,
But he
according
never
to
I'm sorry, he never unified it.
never unified it, won that. And funny enough, it was the belt that Union Kane actually vacated when Union Kane came back to beat Tommy Gunn in a rematch, which people didn't know about.
So
According to
basically Drago has got some longevity here since we're talking '85 and, he's coming back in '91
Yeah, he fights
for a couple
till
years.
95, pretty much around 95. So he's fighting, he's still fighting for 10 years, even though he went away for a little bit. He's still fighting for 10 years. And he lost to Rocky, but he's won every fight since, and he's won them all by knockout. And he ends up becoming the WB heavyweight champion. I'll tell you what, it's very reminiscent of a Vladimir Klitschko being taken from the late 90s, early 2000s, mid 2000, 2010s, and being thrown in the now 85, 86, 87, 88. And I think he gives everyone fits because of his size. And he still has
Strength,
good speed.
speed, like this guy, he really kinda is
His
the total package.
size, range, power, technique. I think that he knocks Tyson out.
Mhm.
Like, I do. I think Mike Tyson could easily knock him out.
That hurt your heart to say that, I know it did.
It kills me. I think Tyson can easily knock him out, and I think still a part of me is like, you know what, Mike Tyson was just such an animal back then. He's hitting him in the chin, and this is just going to be some other Euro fighter. But this guy is built like an animal. He's a machine, and I just think of like, man, imagine throwing, Vladimir Klitschko into those old days and like seeing what his size, speed, power combo and technique would do to some of these lesser known fighters. I mean, or other than Mike Tyson, I mean, imagine putting him up against Holyfield and Foreman and Riddick Bowe and stuff like that. But I actually think Ivan Drago would have fared well. I do. I think he would have fared pretty well. But I think in the end, I think Tyson's, where Drago might survive is Tyson when he went off to jail for a couple of years. But I think Drago beats Holyfield. I think he just keeps him at a distance and uses his range, kind of like Riddick Bowe did.
I
And
mean,
I think he
I think
probably has more power.
that's an interesting fight, the Drago Holyfield one.
Yeah, because Holyfield, tough as nails, could take a beating. Another guy who has a rangy jab, but also could fight close quarters
He
inside.
loved to get inside and just make it ugly, like, he was
Oh my
so
God, yeah. Rabbit punches, headbutts, lot of liver shots, kidney shots. It would have been
he
interesting.
Drago was dirty, but so was Holyfield.
I think Drago is I think Drago uses that power speed combination that he has effective. Like I think he has that size and range of Riddick Bowe, but he's probably stronger and
Yeah,
faster and has better conditioning. And I think
Riddick Bowe was famously out of condition all the time.
yeah, I think I like look who he's beating. He's beating Holyfield. He's beating George Foreman, who's well into his 40s and heavy and not doesn't have the attrition. Could any of these guys knock him out? Sure, but I don't think they're hitting him.
Mhm.
He's beating Michael Moore, who I don't think was ever a really great champion, overrated in my opinion.
He was
Larry
a
Holmes is still sticking around. He's beating him because,
he was
like you said, no
trained up
heart.
by Teddy Atlas there, or Michael Moore.
Yeah, Michael Moore is definitely trained up, and he had the great, he had the great title win. But he lost it quickly. I mean, he really didn't do much in his career. I think he was definitely an overrated fighter. He's beating Tommy Morrison. You know what I mean? Like Tommy Morrison's not going to beat him. He's probably beating Ray Mercer. So there's just a lot of guys that I think he's giving fits to. And like I said, the only guy I think that has true power and like just is a savage is Tyson. And I don't know if he faces Tyson before Tyson faces if he faces Tyson in his prime with Customata, Tyson catches him and puts him to
Okay,
sleep,
I think
you
so.
know.
I
But
mean,
if he faces out of jail Tyson,
he's bigger than just about everybody that Tyson fought, other than, I mean, Larry
he's
Holmes, washed up Larry Holmes, right?
yeah, he is. He's bigger than Spinks. He's probably still bigger than Holmes. He's bigger than Frank Bruno. He's bigger than all those guys. I mean, he's going to have height and power and range like nobody else Tyson's ever fought. I give Tyson the advantage because Tyson
Re-
was just that special when Customato was alive.
Really, when Tyson ran into big guys like Lennox Lewis gave him fits too.
Yeah, but Tyson was kind of, past his prime at that
It was
point.
after the jail sentence, yeah.
Yeah, after jail, Mike Tyson was never the same. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he
He
didn't have knockout power. He
lost
just
prime
wasn't the
years there.
same.
He lost prime years there, there's no
He
denying it.
did. He did. And I would have loved to see what he would have done in those prime years had he not gone to jail. And I would have loved to see if like things had changed and he had not lost to, Buster Douglas. I just think, when Customata died and other things going on in his life, I mean, he lost the edge a little bit. He wasn't this animal, this tank that he was. So I think that Ivan Drago probably benefits. He maybe ducks Tyson for a while, and I think he would beat Tyson after jail. I think he would beat Hasim Rahman. I think he would beat Oliver McCall. I think the guy he might have trouble with is Lennox Lewis.
Yeah.
However, Lennox Lewis, I think, has a glass jaw.
Yeah, you
Uh,
think
yeah, because you know what? I mean, Oliver McCall and Hasim Rahman both knocked him out.
and
And Oliver McCall knocked him out in the first fight.
he did come back and beat them both though.
He did. He did. But the fact that he got clipped the way he did and went down the way he did, he went down like a ton of bricks. That
Mhm.
scares me. And like Rocky beat the ass out of him in that fight. And until the end, when Rocky just literally, I mean, in the 15th round, when he was beating him and beating him and beating him, Rocky just won a war again, another war of attrition, another war of conditioning. I think in the end, a man with that kind of size and that kind of muscle, he still survived into the last round and was still formidable until he just didn't have any more left in the tank to get knocked out the way he did. And he almost got up and then he fell through the ropes. I
Mhm.
think in this situation, I just see that he's probably better conditioned than any one of these guys. And I see Ivan Drago really doing some damage. I think maybe Riddick Bowe would have had some power, but again, another heavier fighter that I think if he would have got him in the later rounds, Bowe would have struggled. And I think Lennox Lewis would have had the knockout power, and he certainly had a long jab and a great jab. But I
Right.
think if Drago gets him into deep rounds, I think Drago beats him.
Yeah. I mean, I do agree that I think Drago is a real problem in this division.
Yeah. Now, you want to go to Tommy Gunn real quick? Let's go to
Yeah.
Tommy Gunn. Let's try to
Let's hear what
tighten
you
up.
got.
Tommy Gunn is doing nothing. Right. He's a slugger, he's a brawler. It's kind of what Tommy Morrison was in real life.
Mhm.
And here's the other thing I can't get my mind around is basically Tommy Morrison was a real boxer. This is when you start seeing real fighters come into the movies and portray, fictional fighters.
Mhm.
And he's 6'2", 220. Tommy Morrison probably fought around 235, 240, something like that. Very eerily, like they had, probably similar records. Tommy Morrison fought more fights, but like Tommy Morrison probably won his like first 20 some fights before he got knocked out by Ray Mercer.
Yeah.
Again, like Tommy Morrison never really he did hold the title, you know what I mean? Tommy Morrison ended up holding the IBC and the WBO title, but anytime he fought a legit fighter, he got beat. He got knocked out by Ray Mercer, he got knocked out by Lennox Lewis. I mean, he did have notable wins over old George Foreman. He beat an older Razor Ruddock,
Mhm.
which looked like it was kind of a shallow stoppage. He beat Carl the Truth Williams, but he got knocked out by Mercer and Lennox Lewis. And I just see like to me, he's a brawler again that probably isn't making it into the later rounds and isn't going to have anything in the tank after the fourth round because he's spent and he's just going to get knocked out. I mean, guys like even like we talked about Michael Moore earlier. I think Michael Moore beats him in the distance. I think Riddick Bowe would have knocked him out with size and
Yeah.
power. Holyfield would have destroyed him. Lennox Lewis did destroy him. Had Tyson not gone to jail, he would have smoked Tommy Gunn and Tommy Morrison. Um, so I think at this time, I just think that there was Chris Bird, other fighters that were better than him. So I see him eerily having that same kind of like rise and fall, like that real meteoric rise and fall,
Yeah.
the same way. And to touch on Union Kane,
Oh,
so Union Kane fought it. He was 6'3", 242. and basically was the paper champion that won the title against a nobody when Rocky had to relinquish it. But after he lost to Tommy Gunn, literally what you don't see after the films, Tommy Gunn then had to, after he got beaten by Rocky in the streets, he had to go back and defend that title again, and he gets knocked out by Union Kane in a rematch. So that goes to show how much about Tommy Gunn
I
in
think he
real life.
psychologically was kind of weak.
Yeah, exactly. And Union Kane actually, according to the Rocky Wiki, went on to have a pretty decent career. He went on to fight till 95, and he was a WBA and WBC title holder along with the heavyweight title. And he never lost after that Tommy Gunn lost. He was stripped of the WBA title, which ended up going to Ivan Drago.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, I
You,
don't think Tommy Gunn does much. But Drago is the interesting one. I just see Vladimir Klitschko, you know,
I think he's more dangerous than Vladimir Klitschko.
oh yeah, I think he's definitely the mentality, especially
Yeah,
yes.
he was a savage. So I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna hit you with what I have happening here. You want to get into it?
Oh yeah,
You ready for
oh
this?
yeah,
All
yeah.
right. 1985. Ivan Drago comes over. He's calling out everyone. He wants to get that big title fight, not the big title. He wants a big name fight. So he's trying to call out. He's looking for who's gonna call out. And with Rocky movies, he calls out Rocky, and he calls out Apollo Creed. But those guys, I mean, Rocky maybe, but the more interesting guy to call out in the real world is Muhammad Ali. And I think Drago talks Muhammad Ali to come out of retirement, and Drago dominates him, sends him right back to retirement. And I
Does
think
Ali have Parkinson's at this point in 80
Eight
85?
85, no, he came back and fought in, 81. He wasn't, he clearly shouldn't have been fighting, and that's
Yeah.
obvious in this fight right here. Drago embarrasses him, it's over within 5 rounds. This is Muhammad Ali way past his prime, but it gave Drago that American champ that he wanted to defeat. So Apollo wasn't the longtime champ, so it doesn't make any sense for him to be like looking for a fight with Apollo. And of course, Apollo doesn't die. There's no reason for Rocky to come out of retirement and go fighting this guy. So I think what you got is Ivan Drago right away. He's out there trying to pursue the title. He's Michael Spinks is the champ at the time. Spinks wants no parts of this, so he's taunting Holmes, Foreman. He wants big names. He knocks out Bone Crusher Smith and Pinklin Thomas. Right. Meanwhile, at the same time, Tommy Gunn arrives on the scene. 7 knockouts his first year, 7 knockouts the next year. He's by 86, he's cracked top 10. He's in the top 10. He's making a name for himself by knocking nobody's out right now. Meanwhile, then we move to 87 here. We got Ivan Drago continuing to pursue the fight with Spinks. He's able to taunt and get Holmes and Foreman both out of retirement and defeat them both.
Wow.
So I mean, he's looking for these big wins early on. So that's right there. I got him fighting Trevor Berbick then that same year in 87, bringing his record to 6-0. He is the number one contender at this point, essentially. Him and Mike Tyson are the two guys out there sniffing right at Michael Spinks. Michael Spinks in 87, meanwhile, is fighting Jerry Cooney to defend his title and go to 31-0. He is ducking Tyson and Drago. Let's be honest about what he's doing here. Gunn continues winning a couple fights. And then Tommy Gunn's name is big enough that Tyson decides, I'm going to pick on this guy. And Tyson wrecks Tommy Gunn. He wrecks him. Leaves Tommy Gunn with a record of 19-1. Loses his super match to Tyson. And then following year, we're looking at Ivan Drago finally getting the shot on Michael Spinks. Spinks gets knocked out in the first round, similar to what would have happened if Mike Tyson would have fought him. This time, Ivan Drago gets the fight. Ivan Drago is the champ in 88. Meanwhile, Mike Tyson, after exposing Tommy Gunn, Rocky's coming back. He's not going to let his fighter go down like that. Rocky's a trainer. Rocky's coming back for one fight to fight against Mike Tyson. You knew it was going to happen. You knew I had to do it. Mike Tyson versus Rocky Balboa. We get the super fight, and Mike Tyson gets exposed by Rocky Balboa. Mike Tyson puts Rocky Balboa down 4 separate times before Rocky drags him to deep water, knocks him out in the 8th round.
Wow.
Yep. Tyson,
Wow.
that same year, Tyson then goes on to fight Carl Williams. He's 31-1. Rocky Balboa steps away, retires again. Tommy Gunn's never the same fighter because he can't handle a loss. He kind of middles around, just kind of kicking around outside the top 10 for the next 2 years, probably before retiring. So we got Drago at the top, Mike Tyson right behind him there. So now we're looking at 89. Drago is going to defend his title against Razor Ruddock, no problem. And then Drago's going to get the Mike Tyson fight too. And you know what's going to happen there? You know what's going to happen there. Drago's too big, too strong, keeping the distance, dominates him, unanimous decision. Tyson ends the year 33-2. Drago ends the year 11-0, the champion in 89. He's now been the champion for 2 years. 90, Drago defends his title against Francesco Damiani. I don't even remember this guy, but he was 26-0 and cracked the top 10 that year. So I think he's a guy that a title holder would look to pick off. A little nice record there with no real pedigree. So Drago ends the year 12-0. Mike Tyson then loses his fight to Buster Douglas as well, and then goes on to win 2 against Henry Tillman and Alex Stewart. I feel like the Tyson mystique is fading at this point. He's 35-3 in 1990, and he's going to be going to jail the next year. I mean, he's going to fight Razor Ruddock twice. He's winning them both to go to 37-3, then go to jail. Meanwhile, Holyfield this whole time's been coming up. Holyfield's this is the big matchup we were talking about in your thing. We get the Holyfield Drago matchup in 91. And Drago loses his belt in split decision bloodbath to Vander Holyfield. He gets his rematch and fights Holyfield to a draw. Holyfield retains the title in 1991. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union breaks up, so he's sticking around now. He's not going back in shame like he did when he lost to Rocky. So Drago's now 12-1-1 after losing one and drawing one against Holyfield. So the next year, I got Evander Holyfield giving Drago the next shot, and I got him defeating him by unanimous decision this time. And end of the year 28-0-1. I got Holyfield then losing to Riddick Bowe the following year, and Drago picking off some more top 10 fighters, knocking off Tommy Morrison, Oliver McCall, Michael Bent. Drago continues on, but he doesn't get the championship again. He had the championship. He held the title for 3 years before losing to Holyfield, who ends up losing it to Bowe. Tyson, he comes back, and Tyson, when he comes back, obviously has to deal with the Lennox Lewis's and the Vander Holyfields of the world as Drago retires before Tyson returns. And that's what I got going on for this era right here.
So Drago ends up losing in a trilogy. He loses 2 out of 3, or he draws and loses 2
to Holyfield.
Wow.
I think Holyfield is the kryptonite to him, but everyone else, Drago handled. Though I didn't have him fight Rocky but I think if he did, I think Drago would have won.
I could see that. I mean, Holyfield had that trilogy fight with Bowe. He lost the first one.
Yeah, he did. And that's why I got Bowe winning at 93 right there.
Yeah, and then he came back and won a majority decision, and then he lost the third one again.
Mhm.
It's, I felt like he did struggle a little bit with rangy fighters. So it's interesting that you say it because Bowe was rangy and he was powerful too.
Yeah.
And he put a lot of weight on him too in the corner and stuff like
Bowe
that.
was also
on the ropes.
very young at that point too. Bowe was a young man. He was 24 years old or something like that at that point.
Yeah, Bowe kind of reminded me of like a Jermaine Taylor. Like Jermaine Taylor had those 2 wins against Bernard Hopkins, which I think were both a joke and a fluke and terrible judging, right? Somebody
From completely unbiased opinion of Reno Del Maro.
No, but I'm just saying, if you watch those fights, and I'm sure you did, like I did, like there was no way a guy should ever win fighting like that against a champion who was counter punching him and landing more proficient shots, more power shots, and outlanding him. And yet this guy wins a title because he's like the young up and comer. I felt like Bowe had that again, another guy who had a meteoric rise, beat a lot of guys, knocked guys out, had that trilogy with Evander Holyfield, but kind of like faded off into the sunset pretty quickly.
Bowe's problem was he didn't like training.
He got heavier. Yeah,
he loved to eat, did not like to train, and it became a problem. When you're 24 years old, you can do that. When you get a little older, you got to start taking care of that body. There.
I agree. I would have loved to see if he could have stuck around and like really if he
I agree. If he could have if he would have committed himself the way like a Holyfield did to steroids and everything else, then Riddick Bowe
something like that. I would have liked to see him versus Lennox Lewis. It would have been interesting to have guys of that size and that range kind of fight each other. Power combo.
So this moves us on to the Creed movies and the Rocky Balboa. which there's not quite as many fighters. There's not quite as much happening. But talk me through what happened here. We got
Yeah,
the
I'll
two
try to get through this a little
thousand.
bit.
We got Mason the Line Dixon, Ricky Conlon. Um, do they do anything in the heavyweight division?
So Mason Lyon Dixon, Ricky Conlon, Adonis Creed or Adonis Johnson Creed, a couple other guys.
You
I'll
got
tell you
Victor
this.
Drago.
Victor Drago, I'll try to get through these a little quicker because I don't have a super amount on these guys. I
Yeah, yeah,
mean,
no,
Mason Align Dixon is Antonio Tarver. Essentially, Antonio Tarver had fought at super
heavyweight.
middleweight, cruiserweight, light heavyweight is most of his career. He was a good fighter. He had some, he had notable wins. I mean, he beat Montel Griffin for a vacant title. He beat Roy Jones 2 out of 3. Roy Jones Jr. split of wins with Glenn Johnson, but he lost to Bernard Hopkins and then he lost to Chad Dawson twice towards the end of his career. He also failed some drug tests twice in his career, so there were some questions about some of his fights prior if he had been juicing. Um, Also, you're thinking if Mason the Line Dixon is fighting at this time, right, in this era between 1997 and 2011, he's also fighting the Klitschko brothers. And I think he's going to struggle with them.
Yeah, I agree. He's too small for it.
Too small. He's 6'2, 225. He's too small. He's going to get beat up. I mean, his overall record, he's 44-0 with 40 wins by knockout.
Yeah,
And Rocky took him, an old Rocky took him the distance. So I think Vladimir Klitschko knocks him out in
yeah.
4.
I
Um,
I agree with you 100%. I think every fighter in this era is better than him. Like I know that record's 44-0. They talked about how there was no other heavyweights in the Rocky world at this time. And this in
Nobody.
the real world, there wasn't a lot of them. Like I'll accept Mason Line Dixon's a top 5 fighter in this era, but he's not. Dude, the guys in the top 5 or top 4 are so big.
And he's not
He,
even a heavyweight. He's moving
yeah,
down. He's going to be light heavyweight. He's going to be cruiserweight. He's not going to stay in the heavyweight
yeah.
division. He's just going to be outmatched.
I mean, Chris Bird is the only guy who really hung around undersized in that era, and maybe he stands a chance against Chris Bird, but even that, I think Chris Bird was too elusive, too smooth. Chris Bird was the oddity here to be able to survive among those heavyweights.
I agree. Now, Adonis Johnson interests me.
Mm,
You know, so he's built at 6 foot 214, right? In the second movie. In the first movie, he was like 175 and he fought it at light heavyweight. And then he goes up and fights heavyweight and beats Danny the Stuntman Wheeler, who he had lost in a kind of a gym fight, lost his car to, but gave him a little bit of a hurting before he got knocked out. He's got a good record, 25-1, with 24 out of his with 24 wins by KO. Um, so his only loss was to Ricky Conlon. He is the current WBC heavyweight champion. This guy interests me in the sense that I don't think he's fighting at heavyweight. Um, I see him more of a super middleweight to cruiserweight or light heavyweight at most. So maybe he goes up to 185 or something like that. But I see him more as a super middleweight, which would have been interesting because his style in the movies are very reminiscent of like a Canelo Alvarez or a Triple G. You know what I mean?
yeah, he has a
And
brawling kind of style like Canelo. I see that.
yeah, like he could brawl, but he could also hit that jab. He's got a lot of speed. He's probably faster than both Canelo and Triple G, where they will probably and he's got good power. I mean, he's gotten a lot of knockouts, but it seems like he's not knocking guys out one punch knockouts. He's beating guys in the war of attrition and conditioning. He's wearing guys down and he's TKOing guys. Where like Triple G, I mean, Gennady Golovkin is just a supreme knockout artist. He's got vicious power,
And
and he's
he's got skill.
he's so skilled. He's got incredible footwork and head movement. He's probably one of the best counter punchers I've seen since Bernard Hopkins,
Mhm.
and he's got lethal jab. He's got every punch in the book. And he even lost questionably to Canelo Alvarez, who again is another fighter that reminds me of how they kind of built Adonis Johnson's character. Like they made him, again, a conditioned fighter with great build, good height, good speed, good power combo, who can kind of brawl if he needs to, but also could get rangy and stay away from power. And I think he probably has more speed, not Floyd Mayweather Jr. speed, but really good speed at like super middleweight. So in real life, he'd be fighting Sergey Kovalev's possibly Triple G if he moves up in weight. Canelo if he moves up like he did to fight Kovalev. But he's not fighting Tyson Fury or Anthony Joshua or Wilder or Klitschko or any of these guys. They're just too big for him. And I mean, a 6'9" Tyson Fury who
Yeah, no,
could
I agree. So you're saying
kill him.
he competes at a lower, because I had him compete at the heavyweight, and I just don't see how he competes here. And really, I
Can't.
feel the same way about Danny Wheeler, Ricky Conlon. None of these guys can really compete with the heavyweights of this era, of this of 2015 on. Like, those guys are too big. It's not
Yeah, I
even
agree.
the
I
only guy who
agree.
really can compete is Victor Drago, and that's the only
Yeah.
guy. That's the only guy. That's the only interesting guy I want to talk about. What could Victor Drago do, showing up in 2015 with the likes of Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder and Vladimir Klitschko?
I don't think he does much either. I think he's body and he's aggressive and he's got some power. But Deontay Wilder has the most power in that division. You know what I mean? And then you'd say Anthony Joshua probably has that. Anthony Joshua's 6'6". So Drago's 6'4",
245,
220,
a big
245.
big guy.
Joshua's probably 6'6", 255 with a
Yeah, right.
great jab and great power. I
Yeah.
don't see him beating these guys.
Joshua,
I think he'll gas.
you think Joshua looks as good as Victor Drago did? Like the way he moved? Because I don't think any of those guys have ever looked as good as Victor Drago moved. And that's where I disagree here. I'm gonna go ahead and just hit you with mine. 2018, Victor arrives on the scene, trained by former champ Ivan Drago. It takes a heavyweight division by storm with his speed, power, and size. I got him going 8-0 against no names his first year. The next year, I got him putting down Anthony Joshua for the IBF and WBO. And he'd have to mandatory probably fight some other unfit fighter. And then he would target Tyson Fury to unify the belts. 2020, I got him. He gets his fight with Tyson Fury. I get him an action fight. I think he takes down Tyson Fury, unifies the titles. I think he's going to lose the next in a rematch to Tyson Fury. I think Tyson Fury would adjust his style and come away with beating him. But I think it's important that Victor Drago unifies the titles here, because what this would do, it would secure the Drago's family as the most successful father-son combo in history, beating
Wow.
out the likes of Floyd and Tracy Patterson, Floyd Sr. and Floyd Mayweather Jr., JC Chavez and JC Chavez Jr. These two have now unified the titles in the heavyweight division. That's tough to beat.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's impressive. But you know what? I think if a 6'4", 245-pound Victor Drago can't put a 215-pound Adonis Creed down,
He's got that
can't
Rocky. He got that Rocky and Creed
can't
blood.
go to distance. Yeah, but still can't go to distance, can't finish him off, can't put him down, and in the end loses the battle, the war of attrition, loses in condition, gets knocked out in the 11th round. I just think a Tyson Fury is going to sit at 6'9", 260, and he's going to just outclass him in every way with boxing. He's going to stay away from that power just like he did with Wilder. And even when Wilder put him on his ass, what happened? He got up. He got up and he finished the fight, and they had a draw. And the
All right.
second time he just dominated him. So even if Victor Drago does manage to take him the distance and maybe win or draw, no doubt Tyson Fury comes back and adjusts and puts him down in 5 or less.
Yeah, I've got Tyson Fury coming back to win, but I do agree Tyson Fury is an odd matchup, but I don't think he's as smooth looking as Victor Drago looked.
But he's a lot faster than people give him credit
He
for
is,
at
but
his
he's still. I think all those heavyweights look awkward, and I
they
see
they
Victor
do because they're
Drago
long.
quite as but Victor Drago didn't look as awkward. He looked more muscular, mean, fast, strong, powerful. But I do get what you're saying. I think Tyson Fury is clearly the class, but I think Victor Drago could shock him with speed and power and take him out early. And then he could unify the titles before losing it. And like I said, for me, it's about unifying the titles, holding the title. Most successful father-son combo in my world. Dragos, they're the kings.
Of boxing, the father-son combo of boxing. I love it. Look at you. You went total Soviet Russian you went Red Army on us.
I mean, I gave
So,
Rocky a fucking belt here too. Let's calm down. I gave Rocky some real
well,
good.
you had to give somebody something. I mean, I went Apollo Creed, you went Rocky. I had to give
So,
somebody something.
all right, so in our situation here, whose legacy is inflated the most and degraded the most?
Well, I'll go this. I think first the impact on the sports world. I think interjecting at least 3 possible world champions in the real world boxing scenarios. And in my case, it would be Apollo Creed, Ivan Drago, and Apollo Creed's son Adonis. Would have been interesting to see the impact on the sports world, period. I think the most affected people, I think the sport of boxing is going to be affected. The fans, pay-per-view numbers are going to be better because now you've got more fighters with longevity, and it's going to spread out the game of boxing a little longer and maybe keeps it on top a little longer and keeps people around. Um, and I think anybody who faces the Creed, Drago, and Little Creed are going to be affected, but the legacy's most hurt and helped, I think, in this. So in my scenario, Apollo Creed, his legacy is most helped. I think Ivan Drago's legacy is most helped. I think Adonis Creed, and then past them, I would say the Don Kings of the world, the Bob Arams, the Lou DiBellas, Golden Boy Productions, Frank Warren. I think that the fight promoters are going to have a field day with some of these boxers, some of these other big names coming into the scene. I think people are going to be most hurt. Well, I think in my situation, Muhammad Ali takes a big fall because his apprentice, the young lion, the student, beats him with an Apollo Creed. So Muhammad Ali's legacy falls. Rocky Balboa's legacy certainly takes a shit. Like he just shits the bed. That takes a dive. And I think anyone who would have had to face Apollo Creed before he retired would have taken a shit. That's like Frazier, Shavers, Ken Norton. I think any of those guys, I think their careers would have been hurt because now they're not only losing to Ali, but they're losing to Apollo Creed as well.
Hmm. Yeah. So in my scenario here, the guy his reputation is inflated the most, I think, is Ivan Drago for sure. And I would say the guy whose reputation took the biggest hit here, Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson never unifies the titles, never holds them. He's
3
out.
losses, right? Before
Yeah,
jail.
I think he got loses to Buster Douglas, Rocky, and Ivan Drago. So Mike Tyson never is able to foster the mystique, the Tyson mystique, and hold on to that. So I know you had some final thoughts you wanted to get to, some questions you had you wanted answered. But before you get to that, you got to drop us with those shout outs and plugs.
All right, absolutely. So for those of you out there who'd like to support us, you could go to patreon.com/ Lantern Light Studios and support not only this show, but you could support our game development projects and the other Lantern Light podcasts, such as Game Johns and Screen Johns. As always, thank you to all our current patrons, and a special thank you to the Russell James John Support Group patrons. You guys are awesome. We love you. We are very thankful and can't thank you enough. If you'd like to support just our show, you could do that by going to glow.fm/GGNP. And we'll say thank you in advance for anybody who supports us. And we appreciate it. Thanks to Luke Mullet for our theme music. Awesome. We'd like to thank Lantern Light Studios for allowing us to do this podcast. As always, without their support, none of this is possible. Also like to thank our producer, Anthony Zacola, for taking care of the show notes, any contributions on and off the air. Trust me, we work with him every day. So he's awesome. Like to thank our audio engineer, the wonderful Maria Lubanovic, for killing it on the mix in the editing room and helping Alex and I sound good. So thank you, Maria.
It's not easy.
If you, yeah, not easy at all, especially with my kind of voice. I mean, you can reach Alex and I a few different ways on our website at ggnppodcast.com for all show news and notes and how to find us. You could also follow the show on Twitter at GGNP Podcast, or you can follow Alex and I on Twitter at AlexFitz44 and at the Kid Reno, kid spelled with 2 D's. And I'm also the same on Instagram. Please hit us up. Let us know what you think of the show. Let us, please give us a review, 5-star rating, anything like that. Tell us what we could do better. Tell us what you'd like to hear. We appreciate it. You could also visit lanternlightstudios.com for more information about our show and the other amazing podcast, Game Johns with Mitch, Jack, and Riley. Talks about video games and the video game industry. Super cool. And Screen Johns with Savannah and Maria, who talk about movies and television, and they get real in depth. It's really awesome. We love those shows. Highly recommend you check them out if you haven't already. If you like our podcast and have enjoyed this episode, kindly ask you to give us, again, a 5-star rating, leave us a good review, and it's going to help us grow the show, improve the show, and hopefully take it to greater heights for you guys. So thank you all for tuning in, and that's what I got.
All right, those are some nice shout outs and plugs. But yeah, I do want to say, if you enjoyed the show or if you didn't, let us know. I think we it's a different one we did today, and I think we'd like to hear your input. See if you'd like to hear more stuff like this, or if you want us to stick to sports, stupid, whatever you want us to do. We'd like to hear from you. But I know you had some final thoughts you wanted to get to, Reno.
Well, question for you. How would you rank from worst to best the Rocky movies in the franchise?
Worst to best.
Yeah.
Ooh, I mean, I mean, it's easy to go with the last one, right? The last one is going to be Rocky Five. Rocky Five is the inferior Rocky movie here.
Okay.
Uh,
I mean, I like that, but I got something different, but go ahead.
I got Rocky Five is the bottom. Rocky Five is the bottom here. I got you're not gonna like this one here. I got Rocky Three is above that.
Okay.
I got um I got Rocky Four above that.
Okay.
Then I got Balboa. Then I got Creed Two. Then Creed One. Then Rocky Two. Rocky One.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go a little different. I've got Rocky 4 as the worst. All right. I do. I know people are going to be like, "What? How do you possibly give Rocky 5?"
Quote that movie an insane amount of times for a movie.
Listen, I'll tell you why, okay? I still love Rocky 4, but I think the fact that, like, Apollo comes out of, like, retirement, gets killed, and then he goes on this revenge battle in Russia, the whole montage, "If I could change, you could change." It just got super corny and campy, and, like, I just hate how, like, I understand that, like, you take from real world situations and life art imitates life and everything like that, but I just felt like it I don't know. It was just a little too cheesy for me, even though I love the movie still, and there's still great things to take about it. It was just a little too cheesy for me. Rocky 5, I have next because there's just one reason. If anything, the last fight scene when Rocky is down and Mickey says the ghost of Mickey's in his head. And he's like, come on, you bum gum. And then he goes, "Get up, you son of a bitch, because Mickey loves you." Like, dude, I get chills down my spine with that scene. Chills. Like, it makes me want to get up and fight an army of 10,000 men and to the end. You know what I mean? Like, clear them all out.
One that also has the robot in it that they give to Paulie.
No, that was 4. That's the other thing too. Rocky 4 is
Yeah,
the robot. "Happy
yeah.
birthday, Paulie." No, I can't get with it. Rocky 5 though, even though Tommy Gunn's cheesy, I love the whole like, "Oh, it's me and your kid home team." And I don't know why it's cheesy, but the "Get up, you son of a bitch." And then at the end, when you get a little Elton John with "It's the measure of a man" in the montage credits. Yes. Right. 6, I've got Creed 2. Liked it, but I didn't love it as much as the first Creed. I
I
liked it a lot and it was
really
cool,
like
but
the Drago family involved at all.
yeah, I just like, he's still coming back. He's still bitter. Like, I don't know. It didn't, it was a good movie. It didn't work for me. 5, I got Rocky 3. I do love, of course, a good Rocky running down the beach scene, jumping in the water with Apollo Creed, 2 ripped dudes in tanks just jumping around the water like giddy schoolgirls. Something about that just gets me high in life. You know what I mean? 4, Rocky 2. All right. People are like, really? He won the title. But that's the thing. Like, I just felt like he had no interest in fighting until his wife just goes, "Win." Then the movie all of a sudden kicked in the high gear for me. Like, he's kind of just kicking around, like, okay. And then, like, goes and wins, and like they win like that. I don't know. I thought it was a cop out, maybe that he didn't just beat him in the end or knock him out in the end
You
clean.
know, Rocky 3 also that had the Rocky statue, right? That
Yeah,
was
the Rocky statue.
the famous statue there. And
That's moved many times.
yeah, it's a funny story there too with the because they A. Thomas Schoenberg designed it, and they tried to give it to the city of Philadelphia for the art museum, and they were like, "We don't want your movie prop, bud." Like, I think that's great. So the Spectrum, the sports arena where the Flyers and Sixers played, they were like, "We'll take it." And since then, it's kind of gathered this mystique around this statue that is in 2006, as they were planning on tearing down the Spectrum, the art museum was like, "Screw it, we'll take it. We'll put it over here now."
So I got Rocky 2 at 4. I got Rocky Balboa at 3. There's something about like
It's a good
you know,
movie.
yeah, bringing his son back in, bringing Duke back in, changing the way he fought because he was older. taking one last shot, getting the demons out. I liked it. I thought it had a feel good to it, and I thought it ended the right way with him losing. Second, I loved the first Creed. So Creed 1 is the
Really good.
second best movie to me. I thought it was great. I loved the dynamic of them. I loved Rocky's fighting it. I loved Creed trying to prove himself and try to step out of his father's shadow and kind of learn about his father at the same time. And then, of course, number one, always the original Rocky. It's the best. If anyone else says any Rocky other than Rocky one, they're an asshole. Right? They're just an asshole. So I got that. And real quick, I got a couple fun facts for you, real quick.
Boy, quick, man.
All right, this might not be so fun, but apparently Charlie Chaplin and Elvis Presley were big fans of the first Rocky movie and were both still alive at the time. And they offered Sylvester Stallone a chance to come over to their house for a private screening. And Stallone denied them both, right? And
Big,
crazy
big
enough,
time Chaplin and Elvis Presley.
Charlie Chaplin and Elvis Presley both. Like Charlie Chaplin was living in Switzerland and invited Stallone there. Stallone was like, "Nope, one up him." Then Elvis Presley, the king, was like, "Hey, baby, hey, why don't you come over and watch this movie with me?" Boom, denied him. And then both of those guys died a few months later.
You have to
So
get dark quick. You said this is fun facts. What do you think?
sorry about that. That was kind of crazy, but
Rocky Balboa basically killed Elvis and Chaplin.
yeah, I believe so. Here's it, Rocky 5. All right. So you consider it the worst, right? So, originally Rocky was supposed to die at the end of Rocky 5. And apparently, like it was like for like he just wanted to kill the character off. He was actually really upset about it. He cried while writing the death of Rocky. And then 2 weeks into filming, John Avildsen, who had directed the first original film, came back to direct Rocky 5 after Stallone directed the other three movies. And the studio execs told him, like, Rocky Balboa doesn't die. He's fucking Batman. He's Superman. He's James Bond. You can't kill him. So, yeah, apparently he was just going to die in the streets. And Adrian was going to give this like heartfelt speech at the end of the movie to reporters outside the hospital when he died. But they rewrote it. Rocky lived. Rocky beats, like Tommy Gunn in the streets, goes on to hit George Washington, dude, um,
All right, I got to cut you off here. We got to wrap this thing up today.
yeah, so that's a couple fun facts for you.
I appreciate the fun facts. Rocky dying. So I did hear that there's talks about a Rocky TV show with Netflix too. That Stallone's in the development for a prequel series. That would be kind of interesting as well.
Oh, that'd be cool.
But I got to wrap this thing up here, man. So thank you everyone for listening in, and let us know what you think of the show. And this has been another greatest game never played. Ding ding.
The Eye of the Tiger. Dun, dun, dun.